What's popping?
Hey, how's it going, Johnny?
I can't complain. How about yourself, Brody?
Oh man, just living the dream. Always something new every day, you know?
Yeah. You know, I don't watch the news much, but it's like almost hard to like not know what's going on with the world.
Yeah.
I
If
think
you're
what
on Twitter or Facebook, it's impossible to ignore.
well on Facebook, man, I haven't scrolled down my news feed. I swear in like 4 years. Whatever, if it ain't like the top two people where I could just like it real fast, especially
Right,
if
right,
it's
right.
if it's something of yours or from the podcast. But I've just tried to really guard my mind, like what information I consume. I think it was Denzel Washington said if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed, and if you do watch the news, you're misinformed.
That's
And
very true.
that's how I feel about myself right now. Because you know, on the iPhone, when you swipe to the right or to the left, it'll show you like Apple News.
Oh, I
Sometimes I
never I never do that.
oh yes, sometimes I'll see a story and like, damn, that happened. That's real.
Yeah. I mean, all that is, it's all propaganda, so I don't know if you want to read that.
Yeah, it's at a point where everything it's like everything is propaganda. Because all the books I read are from like maybe 1950 or prior, just because I want to see how humans operated without the internet.
Yeah.
Totally different frequency. Totally everything.
You should read some of like the founding fathers, like the Federalist Papers, and just read their letters to each other and things like that, because it's really interesting. Like they spoke very eloquently, compared to what people are consuming today, and
Yeah,
it's really just it's interesting to see how people used to talk and write, and I feel
I've
like they
read
were
the
a lot
history of the
smarter.
Confederacy. But I think what was his name? Jefferson Davis. That was a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was a
Sure,
it was a
sure.
good book.
I have not read that. I would like to though.
And then I think the other one was The Way of Wealth. I'm looking up now. It was The Way of Wealth by Benjamin Franklin. I read that as well.
Oh, cool.
It was published in 1758. Yeah, but no, I agree. The concepts are so simple, yet they're timeless.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I never thought
Absolutely.
I'd be reading a book from the 1700s though at all.
It's great, man. I mean, it definitely refreshes your knowledge of the English language too. It's a little bit denser, so it makes you really take it in and absorb everything that you're reading, because it's not in tweet form like everyone is doing these days.
Yeah, yeah, and like it's always full circle because growing up in Black America, you know, you're supposed to talk with a slang, always talking some type of ebonics. You know, rap music always comes up with its own language or vocabulary. So when you get into reading literature, it's like stepping 100% into a different realm. Like I feel like over the
Yeah,
last 5 years, everything I consume is stuff that I would have never knew existed the first 25 years of my life.
I would be curious, like were there ebonics back then too? Like
I
if
definitely wonder stuff like that.
I mean, it's probably not as stark, but
Yeah, I got some new videos I'm working on to put on my channel, and they're really good. I found a young man who was in and out of jail in the 1950s, and he talks about it how he loved going to jail, and there was never anything holding him back, and he changed his life at 16 because he knew he wanted to be better. But like hearing stories from people who really lived back in that time, it's crazy. I got another one from Angela Davis, leader of the Black Panthers, because like I said, man, we've always been misinformed about what's really going on. And if you go back and listen to the Black Panthers, they were super diehard against capitalism,
Mhm.
but none of them really knew much about communism. And
Right.
they publicly say that. And I just look at where we are now with today's politics, and I agree. If you walked up to 10 people, seven of them would have no idea what propaganda is. They
Yeah.
wouldn't know that we really are already living in a communist society already.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't even be able to define what that word actually means even.
Yeah, because it's been spent to look like it's utopia. It's the savior of America. Is when you switch over to communism, everything gets better.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much evidence for that, but okay.
Yeah, that's the wildest part is there isn't evidence about it yet. It's running like crazy on college campuses with the younger generation.
Yeah, well, that's going to be our next stop. I think you and I did that video a couple weeks ago. That seemed to be pretty well received on your channel,
Yeah,
and that's the next step. I think we're going to go talk to the liberals on college campus, see what they know.
yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. Um, Even that, like, because I was ignorant as a kid, but I thought I was ignorant just because of my situation with growing up. But to see how many wealthy children are ignorant, because you see, you see the videos all over the internet like I do, just with these generational Z and just with basic questions they don't know about the world. It's like, how did you live in this great neighborhood, go to this great school all these years, and still don't know anything about the country you live in?
Yeah. Yeah, there's been some videos going around that you may or may not have seen where it's like guys on the street, they're asking simple questions like name the 3 countries in North America, or uh, name the vice president of the United States, name the 3 branches of government, very simple things like that. What continent are we on? And people can't do it.
Yeah. No.
So what are we really teaching? That's
Yeah.
like,
I had seen an
really
article.
teaching.
I had seen something on Twitter just now. I had told my wife, "Have you heard of Gassad?" He has a book called Anyway, this is the research paper that he was talking about. Let me find it. And it was pretty much saying how masturbation is needed to or can be used as research. And it's like,
Really?
man, where are we getting in colleges nowadays? Is
Those class sizes are getting smaller and smaller. Now everyone's just in the bathroom by themselves jerking off.
yeah. Here it goes. Academic paper argues that masturbation is a legitimate research methodology. Like, come on, cuz. Like, this is what we're paying for kids to go to school and learn.
Yeah. Well, they got all kinds of classes on white privilege and the patriarchy and everything else like that. So it's not a surprise. I mean, it's like the Denzel quote that you mentioned earlier. People maybe in your situation growing up, you didn't really know what was going on. You didn't have a frame of reference of what the news was or what to think. But then these other people that are very educated and go to college and spend all this money and go to the elite universities, they're like too well educated just in the wrong thing. They have all this irrelevant knowledge about shit that's just made up, and they can't tell you like basic facts, or like they can't reason through basic things. It's crazy.
Yeah. I would agree. Like, they're smart, but they're dumb at the same time. I got a theory in mind, and it may sound random as hell. You can tell me what you think. But you know how everything is about power. And I just sit back and say the reason propaganda is pushed so hard because you become what you think about. Anything that you create in your reality over and over again, that's what you set yourself on. So if you say why do you want everybody to feel the same way about white supremacy, or feel the same way about whatever the issue is because that's what you want to create the reality to be. You're controlling the future. If that makes sense. You're what's the dude in X-Men who used to sit down? He had the chair on the thing in the wheelchair. Professor X.
Professor X, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like somebody is Professor X of this, and if you repeat something enough, it becomes your reality.
Right.
So I think the masses are being put into a spell.
Well, like the white supremacy thing, I mean, that's the perfect example.
Yeah,
like
100%.
Nobody was even talking about that before 5 years ago, or
Yeah.
however long. Like nobody was talking about it. It wasn't at all in the public conversation because it's not a thing. It's not real. And now it's just being repeated over and over again. Everyone's being called a white supremacist, and now it like creates this this thought in people's heads where they think it's a real thing, and then they base their belief off of that. It's all a house of cards. Is being totally manufactured.
For sure. Because I would say at first it was Black America was taught to look at everything through the eyes of race, but now it's every person is taught to look at life through the eyes of race. So white people are even look at other white people through the eyes of a victim or oppressed mentality.
Yeah. Well, you can look at studies that pretty clearly show that whites are the least racially conscious people, certainly in America. Like if you rank, how does your racial consciousness rank like in your list of most important things about you? Whites like rank way lower than everyone else. But we also have this weird kind of self-hatred thing going on where it's like elite liberal whites that are creating this whole narrative about how white people are to blame for everything. And so that's the part that I struggle to understand is like, why would they do that? Where is this coming from?
It's always been a scapegoat mentality, though. You've always needed someone else to blame.
Yeah,
So
but in this case, it's white people blaming white people.
yeah, but when has a government ever cared about the mass of its citizens, though?
That's a good question.
If you look at the rate of with mixed race kids and all that, the mass of America won't be white anyway. So if you fast forward, let's say you get to 2075, 2080, and the population majority brown, and you're still saying that you're in a a recession because of white people, then there aren't many white people to look around and be angry at. I look
Yeah.
at it, I see, and it could be a reach, but how the Jews end up being the hated group, I could see that happening with white people in America just because they're not having babies, they're not having families. And like I know, biracial people are way more diehard on the black stuff than actual black people. So I can see that becoming in the future for sure because most biracial people, man, they love to ride their blackness.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing, and it's something that my wife and I have talked a lot about. It's going to be a struggle, but we'll work through it. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I think it's already happening too. I mean, if you just look at the mainstream political narrative, everything, like you said, is being put through a racial lens, and it's all going in one direction. It's all going where blame white people for everything. Again, the lie of systemic white supremacy or whatever they're calling it these days is really fueling the entire conversation, it seems like.
Yeah. And the dope is, I mean, it's not dope, but the argument between black and white, nobody's really paying attention to artificial intelligence coming through the back door. So while you're saying that, black people should make as much money as white people, now neither one of you have a job and a robot is doing it for free. So
Yeah.
I think technology is the way to advance society and paying attention to the future. Like, I was talking to somebody and say it's weird that the average person today is arguing about race like they weren't having that same conversation 65 years ago.
Yeah, we were probably more honest about it back then than we are now.
Yeah.
Because everyone's worried about being offended or being offensive, and nobody acknowledges that there is tribal instincts within humanity that everyone has. I mean, you can lie to yourself about it all you want, but everyone has that to a certain degree. Some more than others, obviously, but I feel like maybe the conversation was more honest because now it seems like everyone's just trying to position themselves and make it seem like they're virtuous or whatever and not offend anybody rather than just tell the truth and let it be what it is.
Yeah. Like a lot of people say that life is a simulation, and I would say it's only a simulation because no one wants to be a different character. Like we're all born into this world, and you look around and it's big, and you say, "Ooh, I'm going to copy that person," instead of understanding that you're a new idea. What you can bring to this world, what you can create, nobody else can. But that's not just like on a material plane. That's on the ideas of race and how to advance a society and all that. And you don't have to stay in the same structure. And if humans could get out the concept that we were born slaves, white America owes us something, let's tear the system down. Like if you stepped out of that and say, man, they've been saying that for 150 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you really just look at it from that perspective, like, damn, they really was having the same argument in 1957.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, we could get into any number of topics there. I mean, one of them being, that African Americans were not the only people that have been slaves throughout the history. I mean, like everyone's been a slave. Everyone's been a slave owner at some point, I mean, how far back are we going to go? How much grievance are we really like entitled to? We live in the most decadent society in the history of the world. Like why
even that though, you would have to say who's benefiting from you arguing about it. Yeah. I don't even think it's the issue of who's been enslaved or who hasn't been enslaved. Someone benefits from talking about African American slavery.
For sure.
And that's why it's extremely profitable. So if you were to say, well, somebody's been talking about this since the 60s, not much is changing, but we see Hollywood making more money than ever.
Yeah.
We see as a rapper, if you want to come out and talk about your victimhood status, more money than ever. So I say look behind the curtain and see who's sitting there, and that's where you'll see who's running the thing. Whoever you can't criticize,
Well, it's ironic that in so many ways, a lot of these things seem to have gotten worse, right? Like it seems like race relations are, I mean, at least in my lifetime, at like an all-time low. And you look at poverty rates, you look at single parenthood rates, none of these things are really improving. Yet we're obviously we've advanced as a society since the civil rights movement, since slavery and all these things, but these problems that are continuing to get worse. So that, I mean, there's something else has to be happening here that we're not being distracted from.
I also think a lot of people allow the system to raise their children instead of like really being hands-on parents. Because if you're a child and you view race or all that through the school system, then you're gonna come out with the school mindset.
Yeah. And
And
I've seen it firsthand. It's bad. It's really
yeah,
bad.
and we get to a point, and I think you can acknowledge this as well as me. You get to a certain age where you 11, 12, 13, where you start feeling like you knowing a little more than your parents,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have. I ain't gonna say don't believe they were, but you take yours over there. And for myself, if my basketball coach, I would listen to. If it was some OGs in the neighborhood, I would listen to. But if no one around you is educated, then who do you listen to? And that's the problem is, like me being a dad, I understand a part of being a dad is being aware of how our society works. Not because I really care about politics too much, but I have to make sure my children are informed in this society because I can leave them
Yeah.
all the money in the world. Then
Yeah,
they
you
be
got
some
skin
rich
in the
dummies.
game. You got skin in the game now. You know, it's
And
not
I just think a lot
not
of
just
men,
you anymore.
yeah, like I seen it was on I think the Babylon Bee, and it was like a father can quote every Major League Baseball pitcher stat, but wasn't even sure what grade his child was in, and that's a lot of men.
Yeah.
A lot of men live for fantasy football, but don't live to be outside tossing the football around with their own kid.
Yeah. That's sad. Sad. We got a lot of beta males for sure.
Yeah, so I just think if anything changes, it has to start with the man. You know, like right now it's this big argument about modern women, but I say if you was getting women in high school and you know how the game go, you
Right.
can't be shocked that like, there's a reason I got married as young as I did is because I had a bunch of girls. I knew how this thing called life went when you was messing around with a lot of girls. But if you just now 30 and 35 understanding female nature, then that means between the ages of 13 and 25, it was probably dry for you. Just keeping it G.
That's true. That's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, even then it's like, you know, I'm actually turning 30 tomorrow, and it's I've been thinking a lot about, you know, getting married. I recently got married and making a family and things like that, which are like now my goals. Like that's my goals for my 30s, right? Which is totally different than what my 20s were, where I was more focused on myself and just having a good time and blah blah blah. And it seems like as part of this evolution or degradation of modern society, however you want to look at it, people are just doing that later and later now. You know, it used to be normal that you would start having kids at 19, 20, 21,
Man.
start popping them out, you know, which I think you did,
So,
right?
I'm about to say, I had my first one at 18, and that's the one that passed away at birth. And then
Right.
when I was 20, I had 3 girls pregnant at the same time. My daughter upstairs, one girl got an abortion, and one girl had a miscarriage. And so I had a kid at 20. At 22, I had my other son, and he passed away. Then I had a kid at 24 and 25. So I never got to live my 20s like the average person because I was a daddy at a young age.
Yeah.
But outside of being a daddy, I got to live the life that, you know, men tell you it's cool to have a bunch of girls. I got to sleep with cousins. I got to have 3, 4 girls come to the house at the same time. Man, that life is stressful.
Yeah.
Your energy is drained. Your anxiety be real bad because you always worry about if you're going to get caught with this girl and that girl. And, my punishment was having a bunch of children, but also having children that passed away. Because if I don't have dead children, I don't value life as much as I do. But when my kids died, all I could think of how many nights is I was out with another girl. Like, true story, when my baby mama went into labor, I was out cheating that night.
Mm-hmm.
So as a man, when I see we leading young boys down, and just sleep with her, bro, that comes with a lot of emotional damage. Not just on her, but on you 10 years down the line, because now you want to get a wife, but you don't want your wife to be ran through like them girls you was running through.
Right.
And I got a daughter now, so my daughter 12, and I'm in my head, that's my baby girl. But I understand to every man that see her, that's just another girl to sleep with. Like, it always comes full circle when you think you out here cheating life.
Yeah. Well, I have heard stories like that, but in terms of my own personal circles, I see a lot of the opposite too, which is guys that have been dating the same girl for a long time. They're in their late 20s And it's like, you're going to put a ring on it, or like, what's the plan? And they're like, oh, we're just kind of enjoying life. Just, we're waiting, we're not ready yet, or something like that. It's like, you've been dating for 8 years. Like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, I feel like men like
And
that don't deserve a woman, truthfully.
yeah, well, I mean, and I've been that guy, I mean, I've been that guy too, in the sense of just being selfish about my own desires and things like that. But as soon as I met the right woman at the right time, I made it happen very quickly, and I'm glad that I did. But yeah, it's very common. It's very common. I see it all the time.
Yeah, no, man, I never had the opportunity to have a bunch of different long term relationships. My life was every girl I met, I couldn't get rid of. But I understand who I am, and how I move is different. That's why it's not who you are, it's inside of you. Like, you have to be born a certain way just to get a lot of women, or to have a certain confidence, and it just happened to be me. But I like valuing a long term relationship is different, because and I know, man, it takes no effort to sleep with a different girl every night, or to swipe left or swipe right. But to really say I'm going to build something that I hope to be around for 30, 40 years, man, that's a different type of commitment that's needed in today's society. With everything around you being instant. I mean, you can get DoorDash, you can get Instacart, you can go to any drive-through. Like, there's nothing around you that takes time to really build and create. But as humans, we are seeds that was planted inside of our mothers that took 9 months to grow, and then we came out and we grew until we are where we are now. And I just think we have to get back to that concept of long-term building.
Yeah, it's just a different mindset. You have to put yourself in a different mindset, and it's not easy to do. And it's certainly not easy to do if you don't have the right woman in your life. Then you feel like forcing it, or you feel like you don't want to be with her or whatever. And I get that, but it's yeah, at some point, you have to.
I think if every man becomes super great, though, and like I'm not saying great as far as like the way you look, because everyone can get in shape, but the knowledge that you consume, what you care about, the goals that you have, if you become a great enough man, you always have your pick of women. The only time you have to settle and choose for a woman is when you're not at your full potential. But any man who's a great man can have a great woman.
That's very true.
And also, agree. As men, we know when we're not pushing ourselves the hardest. We know when we can go a little harder, do a little more.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's hard to say society isn't where it should be. Because if humans wanted to change it, and they weren't complacent with how it is, and they would make more of an effort to change it.
Yep. And that's getting back to what I was talking about earlier. I mean, that's what these men did in the late 18th century. It was a different class of men. These were men who were, like Hamilton, for example, when the Declaration of Independence was written, he was like 18 or something. These were like young men who had real passion, real drive, who were intelligent, well-written, well-spoken, and they defeated the greatest army in the world and founded a new country when they were like in their 20s and 30s. And now people are just like staring at TikTok all day. It's crazy how far the modern man has fallen.
Yeah, and there's a divide, because I do think there's a portion of the young generation of men that are ready for the challenge, that are looking at society and saying, I'm ready to take it head on. And then there's a portion of society, the young men, who trying to figure out what their pronouns should be.
Yeah. Well, I think at some point, maybe we'll pivot here a little bit, but their hand might be forced. It's seeming like things are devolving faster and faster, and men are going to be forced into action, into doing something about it.
Yeah.
Because shit is crazy right now, man.
Yeah, I had seen it. I was looking up something and said in the next 5 years to get a plumber or to get a mechanic, the wait time is going to be ridiculous, because young men aren't taking trades like that anymore. How many young men and they teenagers right now are saying, I'm going to be a plumber when I get older? I want to be a mechanic. Like, those things are so far from even being cool.
Yeah.
Let alone just like a real life skill that you need to know how to use your hands. It's going to get ugly for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when I have a son, I would like to not send him to school. And instead of sending him to school, I'll take him to the construction site. I'll take him to the firehouse. I'll take him to, the mechanic, the car mechanic, and just be exposed to all of these different trades and all of these different things. Cause I mean, that's really what men are supposed to be doing. It's the very small minority of men who are really suited, for higher education and, philosophy or being rocket scientists or whatever like that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to have a PhD to be a successful man. Far from it.
Yeah, no, man, that's a lot of why I look down on my father for a majority of my life, because he wasn't a corporate suit and tie man. He never went to college, never did the PhD. Every other word out of his mouth was a cuss word. But he always had me with my uncles, at the junkyard, getting parts for cars, changing oils, changing tires, having me doing the roofs. I remember painting houses with him, but it was all where I had to use my hands. But as a kid, I hated that stuff, bro. I wanted to sit down and play video games like everybody else.
Right.
But becoming a man, anything that goes wrong within my home, I can handle it. My daughter yesterday, she said, "Daddy, you're like having my own handyman," and that was like really cool to hear. But at the time, my mom judged him for being the type of person who just did odds and ends to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But as an adult, I see the value in being able to go make money on your own. It's not anybody's help or assistance, and you are the job. You create. That's why I say all wealth is an idea, because whatever you get good enough to teach, then you get paid for being a teacher. So you study it enough so you can apply it to your life, and if it works for you, then now you can go teach it and make some money off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head, and you don't want to beat yourself into the ground, destroy your body or anything like that either. But it's this whole idea that college, and I mean, I went to college. I have a couple degrees and all that, and I'm paying off my student loan debts and everything else. But that's not the ideal track for everyone, and especially now with what you're saying with plumbers and electricians being at such a high demand. You have to think those jobs are going to pay better than ever. You're going to get more work. So
yeah, and like I said, when I worked at that private school, I was over the IT department, and everybody had 2-3 master's degrees. But everything that I've learned how to do was from watching YouTube videos and just hands on, like taking my iPhone apart, replacing my screen myself. Remember when the iPhone 3G came out and you could change the housing to make the colors different? So I'm going back all the way then. So I just always had a knack for wanting to know how stuff worked. Like, I don't feel any other human can do something I can't do. So when I was able to take MacBooks apart and replace the hard drive, replace the batteries, and recover data, it just if everyone knew how simple it was, you wouldn't look for somebody else to do it. The problem is most people don't want to fail. But I'm comfortable with failing, because once I fail, I'm going to eventually get better.
Yeah.
And I've learned to look at basketball, because basketball was something I naturally got good at, but I only got good at because I did it every day. And now I understand that anything you do every day, you'll get good at. Like, I didn't know how to make a reaction channel 2 years ago, and look what happened, in a short amount of time. It's the power of repetition.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you make a good point. YouTube University is very valuable. I've learned so much on YouTube. I mean, pretty much most of what I do now for money, from working in radio to doing a podcast to doing photography, videography, editing, everything else, I've learned entirely on my own, just from watching YouTube videos, from building up years of experience, working on various projects, and you put one foot in front of the other, and next thing you know, you're doing something good. Yeah.
No, man, a year ago at this time, I want to say my channel maybe had 200 subscribers, not even 200 subscribers. I think I was at 167, if I'm exact. And I didn't even plan for, like, it's still weird that people watch other people talk, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
I do it all the time, though. I have my shows that I watch, so I watch people talk all day.
Yeah, but then you start to realize that people look at you like you look at other people.
Right.
And once I grabbed that, it kind of hit me that you got to not only be authentic, but be comfortable with people judging you, not liking you, misinterpreting your words. Mm-hmm. Like, when I started this, I tried to make sure I didn't offend this person. I said that right. And no matter what, it still was, well, you shouldn't have did that, or you shouldn't have talked about this. And it's like, man, it's like, fuck all y'all.
Yeah. I'm used to that too. I mean, shit, I just said that black people weren't the only slaves. So
yeah. It's at a point to where, like, you can't please everybody.
Right.
And the most comfortable part about me is, like, I really know my mom and my dad. I know my grandparents. So my family is cool with everything I say. They ain't got no beef with me. So anybody outside of the world, I don't really care too much about their opinion because you can't care about their opinion, or you what they say. Only people who don't have no critics are people who do nothing, say nothing, and become nothing.
Yeah. Well, can we get into politics a little bit, because last time we we had a great conversation. We talked a lot about women, so
Oh
I feel like
yeah.
we don't need to rehash
So
that whole thing again.
what's your thought on that the raid?
I think it's crazy, man. I mean, first of all, they're not going to, the Merrick Garland, the attorney general, came out today and said that he's going to try and declassify the warrant or whatever, which is just not going to happen. I mean, this whole thing is totally opaque, and they're just being shady as hell, man. And the thought that the law enforcement arm of the government can just be used against somebody, against a political opponent, is crazy. And it's happened to Trump many times. It happened when he was running for election, when the opposing campaign spied on him using opposition research, made up shit about him peeing on hookers or whatever, and a bunch of other crazy stuff. Wiretapped him, spied on him. They tried to impeach him over nothing. Now they're raiding his home. The FBI is raiding
Wouldn't you
his
say
home.
that's what the FBI has always been for, though? I mean, remember all the tapes they had on Martin Luther King, and they used to watch Malcolm X.
Yeah, they did for sure. And I mean, I think there's probably, just like anything in the government, I mean, there's probably a legitimate argument for it at some extent. Like if there was actually like domestic terrorists or communists, like real communists who were trying to overthrow the government or something like that. I
think communists already control the government at this point.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Well, the point that I'm getting to is that in an ideal world, if we had like a good and just government that was actually fighting for pro-American causes, then you could at least make an argument for the existence of something like the FBI, because it would be fighting for, pro-American values. But that's just not the situation that we live in. It's like saying that we should give authority to the Department of Education, to teach our kids. Well, that would be great if they were promoting, good morals and allowing kids to pray in class and not promoting all this gay shit on the kids and everything like that. That would be good, but that's just not what's happening. So we need to reevaluate, and we need to really seriously consider what role these institutions should have in our society moving forward.
Yeah, I go back and forth on it a lot. And the only reason I say that is because so many parents are uninvolved. The most passionate people that I've seen are really the ones that don't have children. But the ones who have children don't care. And the other people who are pushing it are the ones who are becoming the teachers and the administrators and stuff, Yeah. So it's an interesting paradox on how it should be fixed, because the way to fix it is really to pull your kids out of the school system altogether.
Right. But how do you do that with the FBI? Yeah. I mean, the FBI is all seeing and all knowing. You can't just pull yourself out of the FBI. You can't just, not pay your taxes. They're hiring tens of thousands of new IRS agents. You can't just not pay your taxes. Do you think
that's going to be kind of like what China got going on?
What's that?
It's going to kind of with the near future, going to kind of like how the Chinese government, they all in one together.
What do you mean?
As far as, let's say, what was it, $600 over your account? Let's say if you get 605. The IRS comes knocking at your door. Yeah.
I saw some great memes. There was one where it was the OJ chase with the white Bronco and all the cops, and it's like it says over the Bronco, $601 in my Venmo account, and then all the cops, it says 87,000 IRS agents coming after me.
That's why I asked you, man. Do you think that the communists won World War II? Because look where America has been headed since World War II.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't really know. I mean, there's lots of angles there. I mean, we broke up the Soviet Union, but a lot of that ideology made its way into America, and that's a whole thing. I mean, you have the obvious culprits like your George Soroses and the big money multinational globalists and everything like that. But again, like to your point earlier, it wouldn't happen if we didn't let it happen. So that also just speaks to the weakness, lack of awareness of the American people too, I think.
Can you see this website on the screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this one, the website I was telling you about, and it's just WTF happened in 1971, and it just has almost every chart that you can think of, man. Make it a little bigger. But it's all tied together on what you're saying with politics and with the communism. Because once you kill the middle class, you pretty much have killed America. Because millionaires and billionaires, they're going to be around regardless, you know. They don't have no allegiance to. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't care, you know. Facebook is where it's at, you know.
Well, that's one thing that people don't really understand. Like, why it seems like a contradiction, right? Like, all of the richest elites are arguing for more regulation and more global governance and more taxes and things like that. And people are like, well, why would they do that? Because they have the money, you know. They don't want to be taxed more. They don't want to have more regulation. But what they're actually wanting is more power. They want less competition. They want more power, and they want to concentrate all of the money and power into their friend group and their circles so that they will not have to worry about ever being unseated from their position of authority.
Yeah, and the fact that how they all friends is weird to me. You know, like right now, if you just snapped and gave me $50 million, I still don't know Kevin Hart. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still can't call LeBron James. So the fact that all these celebrities are always friends, that part right there is a little tricky to me as well, you know?
Would you want to, if you could?
I would want to ask LeBron, can we hoop? I don't even know if I wouldn't call LeBron. It'd be a different basketball player. I'm sure it's somebody I could talk to that I got. Royce White. I like Royce White. He played in the Big Three. He's running for Congress in Minnesota. He's conservative. Okay. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No, I don't know who that is.
He's running against Ilhan Omar. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah, Ilhan Omar. Yeah. She married her brother, by the way.
Yeah, he go hard on her. He really throws a lot of shade on her. And people like that, anybody who speaks strongly, they get muted fast.
Yeah.
Which here nor there, we need more people to speak up and call out the criticism. Like I always talk about, you know, right now, the Black Lives Matter and the black versus white, like, bro, that's such a distraction. Like, they don't care. We all Americans. They would just chop all our head off together, bro. They're not going to say, oh, the black Americans, get over there. We're going to let you live. And
well, yeah, if you're against the prevailing narrative, then you're the enemy. It doesn't really matter, you know, if you're black or white or whatever. I mean, that's all. It's a tool that's being used to divide and control us. But at the end of the day, I mean, we talked the other day about that Uncle Tom movie and the second one they're making. You know, they'll come after black conservatives harder than anybody because they're expected to fall in line more than white people, I guess.
And they're the biggest threat. I do agree with my guy Mike that $1 million ain't nothing nowadays. Everybody's a millionaire.
No, not me.
not yet, sir. Your time is coming. Your time is definitely coming. But yeah, money isn't the issue. Like, no one cares about how much money you make or what you have. It's making sure you say the right thing. Yeah. And for some reason, and maybe it's because America's majority white, but black people who say a different language than the masses stand out a lot. Always have. And that's always been a threat politically. You know, if you can get a few ears to listen to you as a black person, the world will listen. You know, right now, Charleston White I don't know if you know who Charleston White is, but he's the next up-and-coming guy who has a lot of attention on him. Before him, it was Kevin Samuels. But like I say, this thing is a video game, and everybody's waiting on a new idea.
Right.
Because nobody wants to stay trapped in the same situation. They just keep hearing the same thing in this echo chamber. And so when you hear a black person who say something different, it's like, hold on, what? They not pushing a story of victimhood and oppression, and that's interesting to hear. Why wouldn't it be? It's the same thing as when you hear a white guy, you say, fuck that, I'm not about to be no punk. It's like, hold on, he got some nuts about himself? What's going on? You know what I mean? It's everyone wants that. As much as the world says they don't like it, that's why I push for everyone to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Because Malcolm X said, what would change America is if somebody came from the hood that told the truth. The problem is the rappers get bought off by the labels. You know, everyone who could really tell the truth about these environments and what could be done, the politicians get paid off. So no one hears the real story. And on top of that, they've done a great job at dividing black Democrats and black conservatives. Because at the end of the day, y'all been fighting the same battle. But if I can
Why
make y'all fight at each other about y'all skin color, then you never get to the root of the argument anyway.
why do you think that the black community votes overwhelmingly Democrat?
Because it's, I mean, one, like for myself, for instance, I never heard my mom or dad talk about voting. I only heard about it through TV. Puff Daddy's Vote or Die campaign, BET. So there was never a time to be conservative. Like right now, if I was a 16-year-old kid, I still wouldn't have a chance to be conservative because I would be told, don't listen to Kanye West, don't listen to Ice, listen to LeBron James. So whoever's been popular, Jay-Z and Beyonce was on stage with Hillary. So for Black America, you're raised through culture. If you don't have a close connection to your father, TV is your father. Rap music is your father. The NBA, the NFL, all of that. And where do you learn about conservatism in any of those? You don't. Now, on top of not learning about conservatism in anything mainstream, you're also learning about LGBT. Mm-hmm. So as the young black kids, if you thought they was all Democrat, wait till you see this next generation.
They're going to all be gay Democrats.
Oh yeah. Why not? It's their norm. And who controls the past controls the future. And the reason that Black Americans can't escape the Democrat plantation is there's no way to escape it when everyone around you is repeating the same thing. And for myself, the first time I heard Black conservatives, they was like, Black people, y'all stupid. Black people, y'all need to do better. And I was like, well, damn, excuse you? Not letting me know what I'm misinformed on, but criticize me. That's why I don't say anything bad about Black Democrats, because there was a time when I was misinformed as well.
Right.
When I was ignorant as well. So who am I to say I'm better than you because I became a little enlightened before you?
Right.
Like I said, we all Pokemon.
If I'm going to say something about any particular group or individual, even, maybe I'm not perfect, but I like to try and do it based on their actions, not on their beliefs. It's okay to disagree with people, but it's when people put things into action that I think it warrants criticism. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you're right. At the same time, you have to actually educate people and show them that there's a different path forward. There's a different way of thinking. And it's okay. It's not you're not acting white or whatever they're going to say about it, but that there is a different way forward, and that you should have at least the option and the open mind to explore other possibilities.
Yeah, most people operate out of ego. So even if they get criticized, their first response is to criticize back. And I move with love. Like I don't really care enough to give anybody no negative energy, and that works. Like because if you just throwing mud at me and I never come back to you, then at some point you got to go look at yourself. Say, "What? Damn, why he ain't acknowledging me?" But I think it's a Winston Churchill quote who says, "Well, you'll never make it to your destination if you stop and throw stones at every barking dog." Mm-hmm. And they're just little things like that I've learned throughout the course of my life. In order to be great, you got to just live great. You can't tell nobody what to do. You can't question them. You can't try to challenge them. Just be great yourself. And if you great, people will start watching.
Yeah, you also have to have a thick skin and a sense of humor, I think, is very important.
I would agree with that.
Liberals they're funny, just in the generic sense, but in terms of actually like being edgy or pushing the culture or the conversation in any way, it's all happening on the right, in my opinion. The left can't meme is the trope, but it's so true.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people that are liberals, I just see a lot of brokenness, a lot of low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and it's easy to join a group. Like, joining a group is the easiest thing to do because you ain't really got to be an individual. And social media, like if I was a Black kid who grew up in a white environment or a white kid and all I really saw was race relations through social media, then I would really think that racism was a problem or that Black Americans do get treated differently.
Right.
And most liberals, it goes back to how I said how you talk to them. Most liberals have never heard somebody come at them from a different perspective and not yell at them or downgrade them or criticize them. Most people get into these I'm better than you type arguments. And that don't really get you anywhere. And I just think if you had more real conversations with people, not that you would change their mind or change their perspective, but at least they'd be able to understand where you're coming from.
Well, I think part of the problem with that is that so many people are not even willing to have a conversation. They just immediately attack. They just immediately dismiss. because they're so stuck in their ways, and I mean, what can you really do in that situation? That's where, your analogy or story of the Churchill quote and not throwing stones at every barking dog comes into play. And in my case, that applies too, and also just laughing it off and just having a sense of humor about it. Like, oh yeah, okay, great. Like I had a guy say to me on Facebook a couple weeks ago that uh, everyone in Kansas City knows that I'm the biggest asshole in town. And whenever he goes to pick up people from in Uber at the airport, they always say, "Is Kurt really such a dick?" As everyone says. And it was funny, and I laughed. I was like, "That's genuinely funny." So people just need to stop taking everything so seriously and stop taking themselves so seriously. That's part of the problem too.
Yeah. It's hard for me to take politics and any of this seriously, just because I really grew up around violence.
Yeah.
When you really have been exposed, that's why I could be on the internet and laugh and joke and not care about me in comments, because this thing is real. And I don't never seen anybody on their last breath laughing or
That's
cracking
true.
a joke, So I just understand life is valuable. And yeah, I crack jokes with my family and my children, and I'm not serious. But I'm also not about to let a stranger, penetrate my armor, because,
Right.
that's all you
Well,
have.
I think that the dichotomy is that the fight is serious, right? Like our problems are very serious problems. The problems of this country politically and culturally are very serious problems that we're quickly reaching a point of no return, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But the way to combat that is not to be depressed and
1,000,000%.
the way to do it is to be, in my opinion, to be the happy warrior, to be courageous in your convictions.
I say be the change you wish to see, dog.
Be friendly, be successful, be positive. Bring people in, don't shut people out. But at the same time, if they shut you out, then that's
go.
their problem. No sweat,
Let the dead bury the dead. I ain't tripping. But I
Yeah.
won't let anybody's energy pull mine down. If I haven't learned anything else through this life, is that the world wants you moving at a low vibration. It wants you to be pissed off, to be angry, to be upset, to be overweight, to have depression and anxiety. And every commercial, do your left arm hurt? Do you need this pill? Do you have
Do you
Crohn's
have
disease?
moderate to severe anxiety?
Yeah.
Take this medication. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Right. And it's like, no, dog, I'm just healthy. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm in a good mindset. And I'm blessed. And there's nothing around me that can pull me down. You become what you think about. So I'm thinking positive. I'm thinking blessings. But I'm not naive though, right? So at the same time, like I said, I'm stuck in fight or flight mode. Like I don't care what skin color you are. If you're a threat, you're a threat. If I got to handle you that way, I will. But I'm not going to say there's no black threats in this world. There's only white threats. I'd be a fool. I seen a black man get shot on my front porch by another black man.
Definitely not true.
Right. So I'm just above the concept of looking at people based on their shell, because that's all it is. And your spirit is different. I can't see how mean you are. That's the thing about women nowadays. I've learned, the beautiful, she beautiful, but you don't know that spirit. And politicians have been able to hijack that. They put a nice suit on, put a cute smile on, and that's the devil standing in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's on both sides of the aisle. Like I just say right now in America, you really can't say what Republican politicians have any good interest at heart, so why there's such a big push for black people not to be Democrat. I never say go vote Republican though. It's kind of, you got to look and see what's best for you. We got a libertarian party out there, but you got to just be educated. Like that's really where it is.
Yeah, well, part of the problem too is that the Republican Party is weak. I mean, the vast majority of Republicans in elected office are busy being afraid of offending people and just doing what the left is doing, but not as quickly or not as vehemently. And we're going towards the same destination, regardless. And so I think that's kind of been this whole debate in the Republican Party and on the right is like, oh, we need to bring more people in. We need more blacks and Hispanics to join the Republican Party. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to say we're not racist. And didn't you know that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican? And it's like, no, that's not going to work. That's not how people think. You have to actually present something. Like you have to present an original idea and a vision for the future. That's not just wishy-washy we're not Democrats BS, which is largely what it's been for the past couple of decades. And now I finally feel like with everything that's going on, it's accelerating so fast, that we're finally seeing a glimmer of this cultural movement where conservatives are not apologizing anymore, and we're giving it straight, and I think that's actually going to do us good. It's going to bring in more people because they'll see that authenticity, they'll see that we're being honest, and they'll want to find out more and join us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when the red pill crosses over to politics. Like, right now you got Andrew Tate, you got Fresh and Fit, and they have a huge following of young men who listen to a lot of their content. When one of those boys get into politics and have the confidence to say what they want and say it with their chest out, that's when the world gonna get interesting. They try to cancel Kevin Samuels off the internet as many times as they could, and right now it's a big push at Andrew Tate. But when you get somebody in that political realm to start speaking that language, man, that's gonna flip the world upside down. Because there hasn't been, I can't think of a man that has said really what he wants. I mean, Trump was the closest, and he was demonized and trashed, but that's because he didn't have a social media following. And I correct that, he was famous, but he didn't have a following like this young generation does. So let's say you got Myron.
He didn't necessarily have the cultural following.
Yeah,
he had a political following. And I think he was moving towards a cultural following. Like he became a cultural figure. It's one
still
of the
difference because he's 70 and these new boys is 20 though.
Right.
So your younger base is really gonna give you that push. So when your political side not supporting you, but your young boys are riding with you, that's when this thing gets tricky. Because just like Black America are loyal to Democrats, these young boys are loyal to their favorite YouTubers.
Right.
They favorite influencers. And that's why the whole world is about to get flipped upside down, because the messages that are being passed down to young men is something that they never heard before.
Yeah. And I think you're right that it may come through a lot of what you might call like men's activists or pro-male internet figures. Of Andrew Tate and Kevin Samuels are two that you mentioned. And Kevin Samuels is the one that just passed recently, right? A few months ago. And I know people personally who I've had very good conversations with, and maybe watching this right now, even that were into those people that like Andrew Tate. I don't really know much about him, but Kevin Samuels, I watched some of his stuff, and their entry into this whole political space is through that lens. It's through the lens of rejecting the feminization of society, essentially. And that is conservatism. I mean, conservatism is a reflection of the natural order of things, and it's a reflection of the natural difference between men and women. I mean, it's really that simple. Like, you could really boil down like an entire political movement to just that. The difference between men and women exists, and they have different things to do. And just acknowledging that, it triggers something, and now you're on this whole path where you're exploring, everything else.
Well, Grover Cleveland was the 22nd president of the United States of America, and he was quoted saying, "No sensible and logical woman would ever want to vote." And like, hearing that off bat, you take that and it's like, oh my gosh, he was a misogynistic. First off, he was a Democrat. But think about politics. You got to vote on war. You got to vote on killing people. Like, there's a lot of things that if women legitimately, wouldn't you rather just be chilling with your kids at the park with your homegirls going shopping? Like, there's a lot of truth to that statement. And that's where we are from society, is where anything that, even though if it's truthful, if it's offensive, people will get offended. And my daddy used to always say, eat the meat and spit out the bone.
Yeah.
And that's how I was raised. And I just think men have always crazed it. I've never seen a college football coach that was soft on his players. I've never seen a high school basketball coach that was soft. You've always needed somebody to push you and get the best out of you. And if no one ever lets you know how great you can be, then you stay mediocre in society. And that's what we have for a lot of young boys, is no one has ever pushed them. They got porn on their phone. They got video games in their room. They can get food delivered to them. Why do they need to go out and become a better version of themselves?
Yeah. That's a great quote from Grover Cleveland. I mean, it's funny because you hear all these things in a modern context, and just something in your head, it just triggers. It's like, oh, that's offensive,
Right.
But there's like a deeper truth there, which is that men and women are different, like I said. And, women are better suited doing some things. Men are better suited doing other things. There's a reason that men have built Western civilization, and men are, pretty much the only ones that die in wars and that go to prison and that, do all these other things, because in a large part we're expendable. Men are expendable. Women are valuable.
And on the flip side of that, not to cut you off, women don't value how hard it is to be a woman or be a mom or be a mother or any of
right.
that. Like my wife has been breastfeeding our babies for the last 3 years straight.
Yeah.
Bro, that's a lot of work, dog. When she like consistently 3 different babies, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m.
Yeah, that'll wear you out, man. That'll wear you out real quick.
So I just there's a lot that gets undervalued when it comes to motherhood, and that's why I go back to things need to be traditional, and you need to be married before you have a baby, because that's a new job for this woman. She's never been a mother before. She's only been a woman. So her transitioning from a woman to a mother, that's a new job position. Just like as a man, you transitioning from a man to a father.
Mm-hmm.
These are the highest jobs that we have on earth. And if you don't take them serious, why would anything else in your life work?
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings up another point that you made earlier, how if you control the past, you control the future. And that's what we're doing with the entire history of America and the entire history of civilization, really, is looking at everything through this modern lens and deciding if we're offended by it or not, rather than actually looking into what is being said and what was done back in those times, and what is the value of that? What can we learn from that? How have we improved? How have we not improved? I was just in Philadelphia over the weekend and with my wife, and we went to Independence Hall, which is where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were written. And they have this thing outside, and it's all about George Washington. There's like it's like the shell of a house, basically. And half of the displays, half of the things that they had up were about how he owned slaves and how, slavery was like the foundational sin of America and all this. And it's just totally ignoring all historical context, and it's ignoring all of the great things that he did. I mean, Washington was arguably the single greatest figure in American history, and certainly in the foundational period of America. And yet we're going to throw all that away because, we, have this 2022 lens where slavery bad. That's the only thing that matters. And it's a real shame, because we are forfeiting the lessons that history has to teach us in favor of what makes us feel comfortable. It's sad.
On both sides too, because the same way it's throwing away the accomplishments of white men in society, as a black person, Black America's history didn't start as slavery. Like there's so much more than that. It's so much of a richer history than that. So when you downplay it and discredit it, that you've never been anything but a slave, well, that's not motivational or inspirational at all. Like my personal opinion is like being black, bro. When I read about Booker T. Washington and Jack Johnson and Napoleon Bonaparte Drew, I'm hella motivated. I'm inspired to keep going in life. I'm never discouraged. I don't feel like a victim at all.
Yeah, it's the soft bigotry of low expectations. Like, you really want us to think that the only thing that blacks have done historically is be enslaved by white people. Or you can take it to anything else. We have affirmative action in terms of hiring and in terms of schooling. Are we supposed to believe that, they're not capable of it on their own, that they have some lesser capability? I certainly don't feel that way.
Well, there was a reason Martin Luther King said, I fear I've integrated my people into a burning building, because he knew what was coming. And a lot of people, everyone around him got rich after he passed, and they still push the same narratives and the same agendas, because it's a hustle. Like I say, all wealth is wealth of the mind. So anybody can create something, but I need everyone to follow my lead and do what I do and do what I say. And that's where this whole game is at right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. So, what do you think of, I guess specifically, since it's in the news, the Trump raid and the IRS stuff and everything else that's going on this week? Do you have, I rambled for a long time about that, so I'm curious if you have anything you want to add.
No, I don't, like I said, I don't watch much TV at all. I'm a daddy. So for my kids from the start to get up, it's either basketball drills or reading or writing or coloring or anything just to make them better people. And if we make our children better, then I think life becomes better overall. So I just try to keep them not out of the world, but I feel like it'd be such a disservice for my children to feel like their skin color has anything to do with what they become in life. So it's up to me to show them what they can be, what they can become, what they can accomplish, what they can learn today, and go from there. But if I raise them with a mentality of victimhood like the masses of people in this world, then I can't expect my children to grow up and be productive citizens in the world.
Do you let them use screens and phones and stuff?
My daughter has a phone just because she's older, but we limit it. No, during the week, no. Maybe on Saturdays for an hour, Sundays for an hour, but now they're getting back into basketball where they're going to have games on the weekend. Mm-hmm. So, but no, man, I try to be in their face as much as possible. Like I'm always talking or studying something. Like I say, and for me, every moment is a teaching moment for my children. So I'm always, did you know this or did you know that or what you think about this? Because my daddy, one of the things he used to say when I was a kid was, don't do what I do what I say. And for me, I was like, Daddy, that didn't make no sense because everything that you said, when you wasn't around, I tried it myself. So now for my children, bro, I'm a walking example of how I want them to be, the type of food I want them to eat, how I want them to carry themselves. I'm in shape because of my children.
Yeah.
If I'm not a daddy, I don't lift weights every day. But for them, we all got a challenge who can have the nicest abs in the house. And that's cool. Like between me and my children, we competing over who running the fastest, who drinking the most water, who could do the most push-ups, who could do the most sit-ups. Because I'm human. Every father could do that with their kids.
Right.
We do yoga every night before bed. You know, I'm just like, you got to be the change you wish to see. And if so many people are complaining about society, then be different.
100%.
And that's where I'm at, man. I just try to be a different individual than what you see walking around. I don't want nobody else to be like me, and I don't want to be like nobody else. But in this world that they say that everyone can have an opinion, then let's get it.
Yeah, I don't think they really want that. They don't want to hear opinions of a lot of people.
Yeah, that's why when they start saying uplift black voices, well, you didn't say we all had to think the same and talk the same and carry ourselves the same. Because no two people should ever have the same concepts anyway. Like me and my little brother have totally different ideas. We came from the same mom and daddy, but we still love each other. But the fact that a complete stranger thinks that you should have the same perspective as him is, well, what you done been through? Where you come from? Why should I think how you think? Who are you to me?
Yeah, I mean it's important to take the time to get to know people, which that's another thing that has been lost, you know, with social media and everyone having their political, you know, thing or whatever. I mean, I consider myself a very politically minded person. I follow the news very closely. I have a political podcast that I co-host and everything like that. So I know what's going on and I have strong opinions on many things, but I also acknowledge that there's more important things, you know, in day-to-day life, that personal relationships are not, don't need to be based on that kind of thing. And it seems to be more the case that is how it is, you know, and it's certainly not my choice. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, I made a video the other day and I said, like, when growing up in school, like the popular people were the best athletes, the best dressed. Well, nowadays, the most popular people are who just make the most social justice posts on social media. You know, they're not really
the ones with the most rainbow Ukrainian flags and the most pronouns in their Twitter bio.
You don't have to really be good at anything. You just have to say the right thing.
Right.
And society is going to crumble at that point. That's why we got so many unhappy women, because men are just saying the right thing, yet their actions aren't behind it. So
the reason that we have so many unhappy women is because men are doing what women tell them to do.
Yeah, just say the right thing and not really be the right person. And men are like, say less. And until we get people to, you know, be of the word and not just talkers, then the world will improve. Because anybody could make a social media profile look good. I learned at a really young age social media was fake when I started seeing my baby mama's pages.
Because you're like, this is not the person.
This ain't who this is at all, dog. Nuh-uh. So that's why my benefit was going through a hard life at a young age, because it just taught me this thing is an illusion. And mind you, I was super poor, but was the most popular kid in high school. So I'm living this double life anyway. Like I'm poor, lights is off, but I got 4 different girls picking me up every day. Mm-hmm. So I've always got to see the balance that this thing is a big old stage. You could be who you want to be.
Yeah, 100%.
However, one day that curtain got to come down, and you got to be able to stand and say who you really are. And most people, they scared of that curtain really exposing. They're fraudulent.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, not to be too judgmental, but I've seen like very ugly dudes that do very well with women. It's
Yeah.
all about the confidence and
It ain't all you was
carrying
angry.
yourself in the right way and being funny and everything else like that. Again, the happy warrior mentality does not just apply to politics; it applies to everything in life.
Yeah. No, confidence is everything. Confidence to make you and break you. I believe it's Marcus Garvey that he said, with confidence, you've already won in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say the world is so negative out the gate. They don't want you to believe in yourself. You can't do nothing. You won't ever be nothing. You black, you suck, you're white, you're oppressive, you're a woman, you just everything from every angle is teaching you not to know how great you are and not to know that you all come from the same creator. You all got the same power. Anything I can do, you can't do. Just put the effort in, plant the seed, water it, give it some sunlight, and let it do its thing. But we don't have no patience in today's society. That's why I'm big on meditation. Sit still and just let it play out.
100%, man.
You never
100%.
worry about your next breath, but you know it's coming, yet you worry about every other thing in the world. It don't make sense.
Yep. I don't even have anything to add to that. That's great.
But man, we didn't kill the hour. It's 9:30. I got to tuck my kids in and stuff.
Man.
I'm going to.
Hey, we're gonna do a little bit of pew-pewing next week. It sounds like. So.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. I ain't got to go shoot some stuff in a while, so we're gonna have some fun.
Well, we won't give the people too much information, but
yeah, man. We're gonna have some videos. It'll get leaked somehow. Shout out to everybody for tuning into the stream. We appreciate y'all. Have a great night. We'll see you later. Peace.
All right. Bye.